Hi, I'm Kenneth Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville. And we welcome you to Impact, which is a regular broadcast that comes through the city's office and provides opportunities for us to share information about all the wonderful things that are happening in the Huntsville and Madison County community. You know, it would be amazing for you to sit down sometimes and just maybe follow me around on a daily basis to experience all of the wonderful people that I meet in this community. Our community is blessed for sure because we have a rich diversity of individuals. And today I'm going to be talking with two people who are going to be a true demonstration of just how diverse our community is. My first guest is Dr. Keith Burton. Welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Burton.
It's good to be here, Ken.
And Dr. Burton is the director of the Center for Adventist and Muslim Relations at Oakwood University. And that is, of course, an incredible initiative that's, I think we would call innovative in many ways, provides training and research opportunities from the college as well as from other entities to be able to build relations in the Muslim community. So welcome to the broadcast today. Looking forward to hearing a lot about what you're doing in this community and beyond. Thank you. Sitting next to him is another person who I think you're definitely going to want to meet and know a lot more about. His name is Dr. Darrell Ezell. Dr. Ezell is the author of this wonderful book called Beyond Cairo, U.S. Engagement with the Muslim World. And Dr. Ezell has written his first book that basically focuses on a lot of the things that Dr. Burton actually works with. So he's the perfect person to join Dr. Burton today and talk about so many things that are happening in his world as well. I should also say Dr. Ezell is also a UN ambassador.
Well, UN Alliance of Civilizations global expert.
A global expert with
Absolutely.
the UN Alliance for Civilization.
Yes.
And we thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
As a consequence of that. Thank you. Gentlemen, you know, I say that, and I know I've told you this once before, Dr. Burton. I say this as an Oakwood graduate. The Center for Adventist-Muslim relationships. It's still something that I'm trying to wrap my arms around just from the cultural context and the legacy of having been a lifelong Adventist. Talk a little bit about this very, very innovative, very, very important initiative that is based right here in this community.
Okay, well, let me talk first from an Adventist perspective, because in fact the center is recapturing an era in Seventh-day Adventism that in some ways has been lost or forgotten. It hasn't been pushed aside fully, but it has been forgotten. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in the late 1800s started the International Religious Liberty Association, which was to promote freedom of religion for all religions across the globe. That is, I believe, the oldest interfaith religious organization in the world, and it's still continuing to this day. Most Adventists don't know about it, but it's been going for over 100 years. And so initiating the center is basically recapturing something that Adventists once held dear, and that is, you know, religious freedom for all peoples. And so in 2011, I was in South Africa with the president of Oakwood University, Dr. Leslie Pollard, and just off the cuff he said, you know, we have some funds to start a center. Would you like to do it for us? You know, and so he explained to me, you know, what they wanted to happen. I said, I think I can make that happen. And you know, from 2011 October, we started the center, and of course I had to, you know, forge a vision for the center and put together a mission statement, et cetera, you know. But the whole idea of Muslim relations was something that was dear to my heart. I'd published a couple, you know, articles in that area. I have family members who are Muslim. You know, my children have Muslim names, et cetera. You know, and so it was very, very close to me, to my heart. So when I was asked to do it, I said, great, we can make this happen.
So you mentioned that Dr. Pollard had a vision. And that this idea was kind of sort of circulating in his mind about what he wanted to see happen. And you're talking about your own connection to the Muslim community and your passion for working with people who may come from a different cultural or faith context than yourself. Bringing that all together for me in the context of the mission as it exists today, why do you exist? What is it that you seek to do? And still, for some people that are attempting to really reconcile the two, help us understand why this is such a valuable and innovative process. Because again, I think you even acknowledge that most people in the Adventist tradition, and of course, that's not just the people that are listening to the broadcast, but it may be a sizable number of people who can either identify with Adventism or know something about that. That's probably another whole discussion. But the whole notion of having people who, from their own understanding of who they are, which misses many things that you're filling in right now from the historical perspective, help them understand again how this works and why this is the right thing to be doing.
Now, when the president spoke to me, he said he wanted something that was a credible research institution that was also practical. And so as I thought about how to move forward, I said, well, the name Adventist-Muslim Relations is basically about building relationship, which, as you said, is something I've been doing for a long time, reaching out to different faith groups. And so I decided that even as we move forward, we're going to be intentional about this. You know, many people, when they see something coming from a church, there's a little bit of suspicion, you know, are you guys trying to win them or something like that? It's not about that at all. It really is about building genuine relationships. And so what we did, the first thing to do was basically come, okay, what is going to be the mission of the statement, of the center, sorry. And so the mission was basically one in which we said we're going to be intentional about everything we do so that the relationships we build are indeed genuine.
So you won't discover things, you won't necessarily come across things by accident, but you'll actually strategically focus on how can we intentionally move into the community and strengthen our network and build this community, build these relationships.
Yes, and so what we decided after we got our mission together, we said, okay, we need some core principles. And so the 3 principles that we're driven by are learning, loving, and sharing. Learning has to do with the commitment to learn as much about Islam from Muslims. You know, many times people read books that have been written by people who have read books. But we said, no, we want to go straight to the source. If we want to build relationships, then we have to make relationships.
And we have to show respect.
Exactly. And so intentionally then, from a learning perspective, one of the first things we did was establish an annual lecture series. It's called the Hal al-Kitab lecture series. That's the word from the Quran, meaning the people of the book, or some may say people of revelation. And we bring in a noted Muslim scholar each year to do a lecture on the Oakwood University campus. The first year we had Dr. Zainab Alwani, who happens to be the first Muslim to serve on the divinity faculty at Howard University. Yes, and so she gave the very first lecture for us. Now, last year, we didn't have a Muslim scholar, but however, we had Dr. Jacob Bender. He's the one who produced a documentary out of Cordoba. And what's so significant about Dr. Jacob Bender, I couldn't say anything while he was here. But when he went back, as soon as he finished with us here at Oakwood University, and it was a joint thing with Oakwood and UAH, as soon as he went back, he stepped into his new position as a regional director for the Center for American Islamic Relations, for CARE. Wow. So he is the first non-Muslim, a Jewish brother, you know, who is a regional director for CARE. And he did our second lecture for us. And of course, this year, I'm not going to reveal the name right now. The reason why is because we know picked it.
But when you do, you'll let us know.
Oh, we will definitely.
And boy, wouldn't it be great, perhaps, too, we can coordinate it around an opportunity to tape something.
Oh, definitely.
That individual that comes, because you really have done a great job in making these things available to the community, joint partnerships with UA Huntsville and other ventures that we've been excited about and will continue to be excited about. All built around bridge building, relationships, and strengthening our ability to understand one another on principles of mutual respect and caring and love. That's a wonderful thing. Dr. Ezell, I want to get you in on this conversation because I know you've been in the midst of this process also.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I want to ask you first is that you have a strong interest in this whole topic that Dr. Burton and I have been talking about already. The whole issue of engagement, and specifically Muslim engagement, relations between the U.S. and Muslims. And you've written this book, Beyond Cairo, at a time when we are seeing so many dynamic changes taking place around the world. Even as we talk, there are still things that are happening and evolving beyond the Arab Spring in Egypt and other places. And this book, in many ways, I guess, is a very timely book, but also represents a lot of work that you've done, a lot of things you've been interested in, and a lot of your background. So talk a little bit about this book, for example, and what brought you to this book in terms of a project, and exactly what are you doing right now in terms of interfaith relationships?
Well, that's a great question, Kenny. Over the last 10 years, I've been involved with both the interfaith community and also what I like to call the bridge building communities around the country. Whether the bridge building communities are in academia or within the civic community, I like to say that, you know, I'm participating in creating pipelines. Very recently, after finishing up my doctorate in England at the University of Birmingham, I had a chance to settle in at LSU, Louisiana State University, and also Tulane just last year as well, serving as a visiting assistant professor of political science. While there, one of my tasks would be to take pieces of my doctoral dissertation and combine that with new research as it relates to public diplomacy and U.S. Engagement with the Islamic world. The central focus of Beyond Cairo looks specifically at the U.S. Muslim world communication problem. This problem has been taking place for some time now, and now, as of recently, since the Arab Spring, we've noticed the decrease, or rather the incline, in perceptions towards the United States of America. When we look back months prior to and even after 9/11, we noticed that Secretary of State Colin Powell and others at the time decided to create some type of branding program to engage the Muslim world through public diplomacy. Unfortunately, over a period of a decade, the efforts failed in a sense, a number of missteps, simply because we decided to use many of the traditional secular communication approaches that we'd use with another Western nation, or we'd use with a predominantly Eurocentric community. What we've noticed over the last decade or so is that when engaging traditional societies, religion-based communities, a new approach is needed. And that approach is no longer top-down, but a bottom-up approach. If you look at a number of the activities taking place with the U.S. military and also the U.S. Foreign Service and diplomats, we notice a shift is occurring now over the last 4 years, where you see soldiers literally in the field, whether in Helmand in Afghanistan or in Pakistan, engaging with leaders of these communities, building partnerships, also engaging in interfaith dialogues in a sense. Bringing together whether spiritual leaders from the United States with Muslims from overseas through cultural exchange programs or academic exchange programs to build positive two-way communication relationships. And the thing about it is that one of the central points of Beyond Cairo looks specifically at symbolism. We have to move beyond symbolism. You know, June of 2009, President Barack Obama made his way to Cairo, spoke at Cairo University, and projected a dynamic opportunity for the United States of America. But beyond the conversation, we need now to look at policies. We also need to look at, you know, how we can round off and improve exchange programs. In addition, how we can engage directly religious leaders to improve relations, whether it's through peacekeeping or peace building or even peacemaking. Incorporating these voices into the larger conversation to understand the aspirations and perspectives of these communities. So that's one of the main contributions of Beyond Cairo, but most importantly, the research and the work that, you know, I have a chance to, you know, put forth.
Gentlemen, let me for a moment talk a little bit about, and kind of piggybacking on some things that Dr. Ezell was just talking about, just the climate of our society today, in dealing with the work that you all are engaged in, and that's building bridges between the United States and the Muslim culture, essentially is what it comes down to, through the center, through Darrell's work with the UN and his other work in teaching. Where are we right now as it relates to a society who has been challenged by fears, misinformation, discriminatory practices, the threat of terrorism, and a variety of other things, stereotyping, mislabeling, and misdiagnosing, and the whole nine. Are we moving forward? And I guess I'm talking about your own personal perspective. Do you feel like we're moving forward in a healthy way? That there are things and initiatives that are going on that are really trying to engage people in healthy ways? Or are we remaining stagnant, perhaps, and not doing everything that we need to be able to do? How are we doing?
Well, I think the fact that we do have the Dr. Ezells and the centers around means that we are moving forward. So we definitely are not where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago. Right. And so efforts are being made to sort of lift the blinds of ignorance. But however, you know, some may say we may not be moving forward fast enough, but we are moving, and I believe we're moving in the right direction. I think the biggest wall that has to be demolished is that wall of ignorance. And one of the things that we're doing at the center is trying to be a spokesperson for Islam from a Christian perspective. So in other words, we're not speaking for Islam, but we're speaking from a Christian perspective about Islam. And when I say Christian perspective, of course, the term Christian has many negative connotations to some people. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking from a Christian perspective in terms of love and tolerance, etc. And so the Center for Adventist-Muslim Relations, we've just completed a documentary, actually, and I will let you know when that's going to be previewed, etc.
Awesome.
You know, but we just finished our first documentary called The Biblical Prophets of the Quran, where we have Muslim, Jewish, and Christian scholars talking about things that we all hold in common. Most Christians do not know that Jesus is featured very prominently in the Quran. His virgin birth, his second coming, his miracles, his perfection, etc. All of that is in the Quran. They don't know that, you know, Adam, Moses, Elijah, Noah, these are all figures who Muslims revere, you know, and I think just knowing that would help to tear down some of these walls of separation when we think they're so strange, they're the other sort of thing, you know. And so we're trying to do this, and even as we try to do this, I have to say that I don't believe that we are where we were. We're not where we should be, but we definitely are not where we were.
Okay.
I think that's a good point that Dr. Burton makes. If I could just pull from the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, I think right now here in the United States of America, the U.S. is attempting to move from an I-it to an I-thou reality. The notion that looking at other and neighbor as self is something that's very difficult because you're shifting and also cutting against the traditional value systems, the traditional ideals that many persons have held dear for a very long time. In addition to that, the U.S. is in the midst of a sea change with its increasing demographics, whether it's this minority-majority shift that the Brookings Institute has been talking about and also publishing papers on. Very recently, Dr. William Frey at the Brookings Institute writes on this prominently, that America's demographics are shifting. And as the demographics shift, we begin to see, new conflicts, new eddies, new tides of social interaction, whether it's negative or positive. We're hoping for the latter, more of the latter, with regards to the building of these interracial relationships, intercultural relationships, and most importantly, interreligious relationships. But I think that a roadmap is needed today. And, organizations like the Adventist-Muslim Relations Foundation at Oakwood University, in addition to what the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations is doing, and most importantly, a number of universities around the country are taking the initiative and making sure not to drop the ball. And in doing that, they're putting pressure on government, whether it's at the civic, municipal level, or even the federal government with regards to improving diplomacy in the 21st century.
We're talking today with Dr. Keith Burton. He is the director of the Center for Adventist-Muslim Relations. It's based at my alma mater, Oakwood University, school that I'm very proud of, and yours as well. And we're also talking with Dr. Darrell Ezell. He's the author of a very cool book called Beyond Cairo, U.S. Engagement with the Muslim World. And I'm very proud of this book for lots of reasons, because Darrell was once my student at Alabama A&M University, which is probably another discussion as well. Isn't it, Darrell?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to having that discussion.
We'll have that discussion at a different time, but I have to say I'm so proud of this brother and what he's doing. and how he's advancing the cause of so many things. He's also a global expert with the UN Alliance for Civilization. I want to ask you, I know you've been very interested in what's going on in Washington with policy making and a variety of other things, engaged in various discussions and dialogue. What's the climate in your mind, and what opportunities have you had specifically to talk about this whole notion of engagement between Muslims in the U.S.?
Well, you know, for the most part, I like to keep my conversation based in academia to a large extent. I mean, a lot of academics, they can agree. You know, you can publish, you can write, you can serve as a UN global expert, you can fly here, you can fly there, and be a part of the conversation. But more importantly, you're able to craft many of the decisions and ideals that are shaped around whether it's international relations or international studies. In addition to that, the book has served as a catalyst, if you will, in the U.S. Diplomatic arena. The U.S. Department of State received an email that the U.S. Department of State Bunch Library has just ordered and received a copy of the text, so U.S. diplomats are able to sift through that and use it within training classes. In addition, what I find to be most interesting is the fact that universities here in the U.S. since 9/11, in this post-9/11 era, are taking cultural engagement and intercultural relations seriously today. We know for a fact, there's no doubt, that unless we open up, debunk, sift, pull back the truth and deal with the elephant that's in the room. And the elephant is not just Islam or Muslims or whatnot. The elephant is the reality that our nation, the U.S., is shifting and changing. So it means that, again, as I go back to, a roadmap is needed. And the roadmap, for example, whether it's Beyond Cairo or the establishment of new intercultural relation councils throughout the U.S., or municipal governments taking into consideration cultural competence and implementing, the tool of cultural competence at the grassroots level. That's what is needed today. So I can say that I'm noticing a lot of progress in the field of crossing these cultural lines, but more importantly, a lot is still needed today, especially in Washington, D.C., especially with regards to policymaking and the shaping of the new public diplomacy today.
Yeah, on a local level, I'm always bragging about Huntsville. I think that we certainly have a strong technological community. We are leaders in so many different areas, got a great academic system, lots of colleges and universities around, and lots of volunteers out there doing wonderful things in our community as well. There's a spirit in this community of the desire that we're talking about. That's the desire to cooperate, the desire to come alongside one another and work together, to learn together. And I know, Dr. Burton, you've been involved in some of these initiatives because our paths cross a lot of times at these different activities and events. There are initiatives. I know, Darrell, you've spoken at One Huntsville, which is a monthly diversity dialogue that takes place in our community. It takes place every second Tuesday of the month right now they're meeting at UA Huntsville at the exhibit hall at 5 o'clock from 5 to 7. They usually have a speaker, but one of the most powerful things about that event is not so much the person who's been invited to speak. It's the opportunity for me to talk to you, where I can sit around a table with people who are different from me, people who I don't live with, who don't look like me, who may not talk like me, who may not have my background, but have an opportunity to really talk to you as a human being, which is our one common denominator. And for me, that's one of the most powerful things that has to happen. When you start talking about the challenges that we face as it relates to racial discrimination and diversity, it's really all about getting to know people, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, moving into environments where we may not be comfortable, and taking the chance to get to know somebody. It's said like this often: you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's on the other side of that thing that you fear, that thing that you have not taken time to get to understand. And really, to me, that's the substance, that's the essence of what we're talking about. And I think you both would probably agree with me, because you have been engaged in this kind of work. You have been involved with these kinds of initiatives. And I simply say I think we need more of it.
I'd agree with you 100%. We are who we are because of accidents of birth. You know, so I happen to be born into a home where my parents have been exposed to Seventh-day Adventism, you know, and that's the tradition in which I was nurtured. My dear friend, Dr. Laju Treja, I believe he did the last one Huntsville presentation. He happened to be born in India, the Hindu background, etc., you know. And so we are who we are because of accidents of birth. And even though we may be firm in our identities, you know, we will never know what it is to be fully human unless we are willing to go beyond our comfort zone and find out what makes you, you. You know, and so the opportunities that we have to meet people from other cultures, to learn what makes them them, so they can learn what makes us us, and so we can learn what makes all of us who we are. I think it's a challenge that, you know, more people need to embrace.
Yeah, and I know we've got just a couple of minutes. I want to come back to Dr. Ezell too, but as you were talking, Dr. Burton, I'm thinking, you know, the experience of grief is, it doesn't know an ethnicity. It doesn't have an ethnic identity. The experience of joy or happiness is promoted by things that we experience in various environments, that the uniqueness of it is simply the fact that we did it in a different venue, perhaps, but we also recognize the great value in having had that experience, the difficulties, the high mountaintop experiences that we can celebrate and appreciate. There's so many dimensions of commonality that we can rejoice and share in as people. At the same time that we can also appreciate the differences that make people very unique and also make them who they are. So you're absolutely right when you start talking about investing in the humanity of a person and connecting them at that level. Dr. Ezell, we've got just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to get you back in here for 1 second because I know you have something to say.
No, you know, one of the points, I think that it's time to celebrate ethnicity and diversity, you know, here in the United States of America, but more importantly, here in Huntsville, Alabama, Madison County, a very diverse county, you know, if you will. And when we celebrate diversity, when we celebrate multiculturalism and the difference, we learn. We are able to learn through difference. We're able to learn through conflict and struggle. There's nothing wrong with conflict. It's one of the points that I make in Beyond Cairo is that it's almost impossible to remove ourselves from conflict. It's going to take place. But through conflict, we're able to distinguish what works and what doesn't work. Now we recognize today, for example, in Washington, D.C., that peace talks are needed. You see the U.S. Engaging in talks with the Taliban. That's something 20 years ago, for example, we'd never see. In addition, the Pakistani government, you know, engaging with talks with the Taliban. That's something that's totally different, simply because state actors, government actors, and non-state actors, individuals who are not associated or affiliated with government, are today wrapped up in a new type of conversation. And we also notice that non-state actors are penetrating and shaking the international agenda, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in South Africa, in Brazil, wherever the case might be, Dagestan, it doesn't matter. So the conversation has to take place, and bringing it back to the civic level here within Huntsville, we know for a fact that when we celebrate, we not only learn, but we also create paths for the next generation, our children.
Okay, and can I take this opportunity just to say that we're going to have an opportunity to celebrate and push forward on March the 13th when Dr. Darrell Ezell actually gives one of these thought-provoking lectures on the Oakwood campus. It's on March 13th.
I look forward to that.
All right, fantastic. I want to thank Dr. Keith Burton for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
He's the director of the Center for Adventist and Muslim Relations, based at the great Oakwood University. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much, Ken.
And come back and see us.
Will do.
And Dr. Darrell Ezell, my man over there on the end, the author of this great book, Beyond Cairo, U.S. Engagement with the Muslim World. See, it's got your name right here.
Absolutely.
Man. So you wrote it. Proud of you, man.
Thank you sincerely. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, absolutely. He's also a global expert with the UN Alliance of Civilization, and we thank you both for being here today. We thank you for being a part of our broadcast, and we thank you for joining us as we bring you information that's happening right here in the Tennessee Valley, and it's our privilege to be able to share this information with you and also ask that you'll share it with someone else, because it's the kind of thing that we're always looking for, to be able to promote positive, productive information that can make a difference in people's lives. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you on our next broadcast.